Welcome, welcome. We're gonna do lots of hips today. My shoulder is fucked. So maybe we'll finish with some chest openers because that's what helps my shoulder. You're gonna need 2 blocks or something similar to this situation. I don't have 2 blocks, so I'm using 1 block and foam roll. But you do want 1 block or block-like substance, so stack of books, whatever, because we're going to be diving into the hips. And I've been playing a lot with elevating the feet in things like lunges and forward folds, just to get into the hips in a different way and kind of change things up, because our bodies kind of get used to the same old, and it's nice to throw them off their game and challenge them a little bit. So I've been doing a lot of that, and we're going to keep up with that tonight. So I'm going to do a little hip warm up first. Actually, let's just dive into a massive hip opener. So double pigeon. You might want to do this like if you've got really tight low back or tight hips. You might do this up against a wall or up against something, because it's nice to have that thing to force you to sit up tall. So if you find that you come into this and you're like kind of rounded over, bring yourself up against something. I like to do it just because it makes sure that I'm not cheating. So what we're going to do is you're going to take your left leg and put it in front of you. So my knee and my heel and halfway up the leg, that's going to line up with my heart center. Flex the foot, protect the knee. Then the other foot is going to stack on top of that knee. So it should be heel on top of knee, knee on top of heel, shin on top of shin. So if you look down and you can see your bottom shin, you need to push that leg forward. So essentially my shin is parallel to the edge of my mat, okay? Shin stacked on top of shin. Both feet are flexed to protect the knees. And like I said, if you come here and you're like, oh, I'm rounded, put yourself up against something. Now, if you're having any wonkiness in the knees or it just feels too intense, you've got your props. You can prop yourself up anywhere that you need to. And then if this feels like, okay, not terrible, I can sit up tall, I can breathe, the stress in my hips isn't too intense, then you can start to tip forwards. So the really important thing is, can my low back push into my belly button? And does it feel like my belly button can lift up and move forward? So if I'm coming into a forward fold or even just sitting upright, I'm leading with my belly button. So that lifts and comes forward. That's going to drop your knees down. So if you're like me and you're just sitting directly upright and your knees are up, first thing that happens when I start to tip forward is more pressure comes into my legs come to the floor or towards the floor. And for some of us, that might be enough. Stop there. If you want to go further, if you've got really open hips, you can continue to lead with that essentially low back to belly button forward. So that means I'm just not rounding and leading with my head. I'm leading from the base of my spine into a forward fold. Chest stays open, shoulders stay wide, and you start to take it forward as far as you want to go, as far as your body will let you. A really good indicator of maybe I took this too far is you holding your breath, or you're holding tension in your jaw, in your shoulders. So where there's not a nice flow of energy, I'm sitting here talking your face off. So that means I'm in a good place. I can keep talking. So think about that. It's kind of like the idea of when you're running, keeping yourself at that level where like, if I ran any faster, I wouldn't be able to talk to my jogging partner, but I don't want to be leisurely talking to my running partners. Same thing here. Hip openers. Could I discuss things in a hip opener? If I can't, then I'm definitely too deep. If it's really easy, I'm not deep enough. And then start to tune in to where you're feeling the tension. Breathing into that. So for me, it's like 2 specific spots, one on each glute, kind of up near my sacrum, up near the low back. And I just imagine every time I take an inhale, that area is expanding. I'm kind of pointing my breath towards that area. And if you come forward, you're gonna lift up and undo those legs slowly. Walk them out in front of you. Give them a little wiggle. So I like to rotate in strongly and then release out, because we just did a massive external rotation. So countering that with an internal rotation feels really good. If your knees are tender at all, give them a little rub, a little bit of assistance in flow. And then we're going to swap sides. So right foot comes down, foot flexed, shin parallel to the edge of the mat, knee, heel, halfway, midline of my torso. Flexing the other foot, bringing that on top. Now we are not symmetrical beings. So one side is always going to be a little different than the other. So you may need props on the side where you didn't need them on the other side, vice versa. It may be easier to sit up on this side than it was on the other side, or vice versa. So if you need the support of a wall or something behind you, bring that in. If you are feeling good here, start to move that low back through the belly, so that when we do start to fold forward or even think about folding forward, we're doing it from the low back and not from the mid upper back head. And again, I'm watching the breath to see where I find my edge. And I've started to notice that feels like when I get to a juicy spot in a pose, when I get to the edge, it feels like the sensation of being invited to take a breath. That's the best way I've been able to describe it, because it's like find an area that really needed me to move into it, to stretch it. And there's this, almost like you catch your breath, where you're like, but if I can be aware and present when that happens, I can really invite that to not be a holding, a sucking in and holding, and more of an expansive, like, and then softening on that exhale into whatever space I'm feeling. So I'm looking for that edge. I'm looking for the sensation that invites me to take a deep breath, invites me to be more present, and invites me to sink a little bit deeper. And I'm pointing my breath into those areas of tension where I'm feeling the most sensation. Slowly rolling up if you tipped forward. And then we release one leg and then the other. Give it that nice internal rotation. And next we're going to bring ourselves into a little bit of a single leg forward fold with the possibility of being up on something if we need to be. So if you've got any knee issues, make sure you elevate yourself up on this. And for women, it's a lot more important to be aware, of any wonkiness in the knee. That's an official Sanskrit term of wonkiness. Because of the way our pelvis is, it's wider than the male pelvis. So yoga was made for 9-year-old boys, and I'm a 40-year-old woman. So I have to adjust yoga to fit my body. And it's important to be really aware of that. And I say this because when I had my 4th surgery on my left knee, my female doctor told me this. You know, I was like, yeah, I want to be able to get back into this position. And she was like, no, be very careful when you do that. And I was like, yeah, I've been doing it for years. And sure enough, this is how I blew out my right knee. So it's really important when I talk you into this and I talk you out of this to actually do it the way I'm telling you to come in and out of it, because that's a safe way to do it. What happened for me was I was feeling lazy and I didn't take my own advice and come out of it safely, and I blew my knee out. So make sure that if this feels wonky at all, you're up on a block or a pillow or a blanket or a poop stool, whatever you got laying around. But to come into it, you're going to lean to your left, bring that right foot back, kind of catch it, and we're going to bring it just to the outside of the hip, and then start to play with the idea of like, let me sit here. And you want both sitting bones to be on the ground and comfortable. Okay? If I'm not comfortable, I need to sit my ass up. So when I started this pose years ago, I was up on like 3 blocks. Okay? And I slowly worked my way down as my body decided to release and relax. So here we are. I comfortably have weight on both of my sitting bones, so I'm not just leaning over to the left. I can be right in the center here, and then we just literally fold forward. Tendency is to drop the left side of the rib cage, or the lengthened leg, that side of the rib cage in the shoulder. Because the body kind of wants to lift the hip up and drive the other hip down. So we're trying to resist that. So I'm going to take the bent leg, rib cage and shoulder more forwards. It's going to feel like it's more forwards, but it's really just even. And again, I'm just watching, like, how does this feel on my knee? Feels good? Okay, I'm going to keep going. There is a slight, once you get into this, a slight drawing back of the left femur, so thigh bone. So I come into it, and then I think about just the idea of sucking that left hip back into my pelvis. And as I do that, and I come a little bit deeper, and it sucks my pelvis down a little bit more, my knee gets angry. So I'm going to lift myself up. So I'm just very gently thinking about sucking that left thigh bone into the hip, as if somebody put their hand on my left low back and said, push into me. So you can even do that if you're like, I don't, what the heck, suck the thigh bone with this, I'm not a chicken wing. Absolutely, you are not a chicken wing. So place your hand back there and think about pushing into your own hand, and you'll get that sensation. You'll understand it, like plugging the thigh bone back. Sometimes the shit I say in yoga class just blows my own mind. Yoga with a side of comedy. So this is ideally going to not just be working the hamstring, but also back across the sacrum. You should feel it coming across the sacrum. And oftentimes after I do this pose, I'll get a really nice adjustment in my pelvis. So we take the forward fold first, and then we come back up and we start to open up through the other hip flexor. So you just kind of tip back onto your hands. And then it all depends again on what feels good in your body. The important thing is that my knee continues to point straight forward. It doesn't start to splay out to the right here. So my knee points straight forward. And if it feels like, you know what, I want to go deeper, I feel like I can go deeper, you can bring blocks under your elbows and set the elbows down on blocks. You can bring the elbows down to the floor. You can bring blocks under your shoulders and drop back a little deeper. I'm going to stay here today. Or you can drop all the way down onto the floor. So I'm looking actually for two things. You'll notice that my right knee is popped up off the ground about 2 inches, which is fine. What I don't want is that knee any higher. Like my calf is still on the mat. So the inside of my calf I can feel is on the mat. If it feels like your calf is starting to lift up, then you definitely want to lift the chest up and come up higher in the torso. So ideally that knee will stay down. And if you have come backwards, you're going to start to pop up onto the elbows and then pop up onto the hands. And this is the important part, coming out. You grab hold of the ankle, you take the whole leg with you as you tip all the way over to the left. Pull your knee to your chest and then extend the leg forward. Give the knee some love and attention. And then we'll switch sides. So I'm going to lean to my right, pull that left heel in, point my knee forward, have a seat. Both sitting bones rest on the floor, or you elevate yourself up. Knee is comfortable, or you elevate yourself up. Knee is not comfortable for me today. And then we start to fold forward. So again, our forward fold comes from the low back, not from the neck and shoulders. So I feel like my low back pushes into my belly, and then that pushes me forward into my forward fold. And again, you want to kind of accentuate the forward fold through the bent leg side body. So left rib cage and shoulder coming forward. And then I think about just dragging that thigh bone up and back into the hip socket. So again, if you're like, I have no idea what she's talking about, bring your hand back here and then try to push from your leg into your low back. And you'll feel everything kind of light up. And now you know what it feels like to plug your thigh bone into your hip. Now you know what I'm talking about. And again, we look for sensation in the body. So where am I feeling the most sensation? Can I breathe into that sensation? And also, do I need to go a little bit deeper so that I find that place that inspires me to take a deeper breath? And from there, we lift up and start to play with the idea of coming backwards. Maybe just onto the hands, maybe elbows onto blocks, maybe elbows onto the floor, maybe the back onto a block. Just be shorter on this side than I was on the other because that was in the perfect position before. Maybe shoulders on the blocks, maybe back all the way on the floor. And again, my knee is pointing straight forward. This side is not as unhappy as the other as far as the knee joint is considered today. So that knee is actually touching the ground on this side, even as I come back in the same position. So again, you want to make sure that if the knee does pop up slightly, that the calf muscle is still down on the mat. And if you're on the elbows or on the back, you're gonna pop up slowly towards the hands. And then to come out of this, you grab hold of the ankle, lean over, pull the knee to the chest, and then extend from there. Love up that knee. Okay, now release the block. Bring it out in front of you. If you've got a second block or block-like object, you can bring that up. And we're gonna place the right foot on the block. And then get ourselves in a good position with the left knee so that it feels like a good stretch. And then just a lazy lunge for a moment. So move around, wiggle the hips. Again, you're looking for a place that invites you to take a deeper breath. Getting the hips used to this lunge with the foot lifted. And then you're going to walk yourself up. So I like to use a block or something and under my standing arm. So left arm this time. And then I use my elbow on my knee on this right side. And I do that to set the intention of pushing away. So I will actually push into the knee. So I'm doing two things here. Pushing my knee forward so I deepen that stretch, but also pulling my shoulders back. So oftentimes we come into a lunge and we just kind of like fall into it. When really we need to be reaching that front leg forward and actually pulling the whole abdomen backwards. So the pelvis goes forward, but everything in the pelvis is starting to pull backwards. So it's sucking into the low back. Think about all of your internal organs being pulled like G-forces back into the low back as the bottom of the pelvis goes forward with that knee. So I'm really lifting up and pulling back. And as you do that, you'll feel the stretch deepen through that left leg. And we're gonna come back down. And then as if we were gonna take a twist, but I wanna take the left arm out in front and start to think about dropping the elbow either towards the mat or towards a block, okay? So I am taking a twist, but the idea is instead of the twist idea where I'm like, oh, I'm lengthening up, this is I'm lengthening down. I'm sending that left rib cage down towards the mat. And I am rolling my pelvis slightly to the left. So I'm getting a little bit more on the outer edge of the left hip. So this is kind of a halfway between a twisting lunge and that little side stretch hujamawechet that we do often. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's fine because we're about to do it anyways. So this is just kind of in between. And it really actually works a lot of the inner thigh of that front leg. And I'm not letting the knee splay out here. I'm actually kind of hugging my knee in so it stays right on top of the foot. And then from here, we're going to come into what I was just talking about, which is I'm going to let that foot come off and I'm going to turn my toes towards the outside of the mat. And I'm going to roll onto that left outer leg, flex the foot and drop the hip down. But I'm using my arm to keep my torso moving up. So my heart's moving up, but I'm stretching my left hip down towards the mat like taffy, which I was trying to explain taffy the other day in a yoga class in Sweden. I was like, I'm gonna have to go back to the US and get some taffy and bring it to class. You can understand that concept of if you pull it slowly, it will slowly stretch. If you pull it fast, it'll snap. So it's that taffy of like, okay, we're just letting that left hip slowly pull towards the mat. Maybe I should actually do like an informative YouTube video about taffy so that when my students are like, what the hell is this American girl talking about? They'd be like, welcome to my YouTube channel. All right, come on back center. Bring that right knee back. Move your block over to the left. And bring the left foot up onto the block. Grab your secondary block-like substance, have it nearby. And just start with a lazy lunge. So I'm just moving around and exploring. And then you're gonna take your block under the right arm, left elbow onto the left knee, and start that action of sending the knee forward and pushing into the knee to pull your upper body and mid body back. So my hips scoop under, think of an ice cream scoop. The hips scoop under, the bottom of my pelvis keeps moving forward. And I take all those internal organs and I motivate them backwards. So the whole front body is moving towards the back body as the pelvis keeps moving forward. And I'm gonna come on down. So again, you can bring the elbow onto a block or just drop the elbow down to the floor. And we are inviting that whole right rib cage down towards the mat. I'm twisting to the left and I'm kind of wrap my elbow around my knee and I'm hugging it towards me so that it doesn't swing out. And there's a little bit of a roll towards that outer right hip. Walking myself back up, just gonna pull the foot off the block, turn the toes out to the left, and then rotate onto the outside of my right leg, flexing the foot, Dropping the hip down towards the floor, but keeping the heart moving up. Lifting up and moving back. We're going to take 2 child's pose variations. So first one, traditional knees together, drop the hips back. Arms can either be out in front of you or alongside of you. This is really just for the low back. Rolling up, take the knees wide. Take them as wide as feels comfortable in your body, big toes together, and then dropping forward. It's probably most comfortable to have the elbows either out or the arms straight forward. And depending on how low your chest can get to the floor, you might need to turn your head. And then rolling up. Coming around onto hips. So for this pose, you can use a block or a foam roll or a bolster. It is really nice if you've got a bolster because it's soft and cushy. I'm just going to use a block on its side. It's essentially reclined butterfly with the feet elevated, which is very nice. Letting those knees drop open. If you're using an item that rolls, something next to it to hinder its rolling activities. Arms drop out to the side. And bring the knees together. Just move that a little further down your mat away from you. Bringing the feet hip width apart, lifting the hips up into a bridge. Thinking about a gentle spiraling inwards of your thighs so that we get a little bit of internal rotation. And make sure your glutes are working here. So really pushing through the hamstrings and through your glutes up towards the ceiling. And really to get that most optimal engagement, lift your toes up. So push through your heels. And then you kind of don't have a choice. Lowering down, hug the knees into your chest. We'll rock ourselves up to seated to finish off with one last little doozy. So, probably going to have a strap for this. Don't necessarily need one if you've got the flexibility to hang on to the foot, but always nice to have, or any strap-like substance. We're not gonna, it's not like we need a super long strap here. It's probably just a couple inches. So you're gonna put that strap around your right foot and extend your left foot out. So what we're looking for here is kind of a V, a 45-degree angle with the foot and a 45-degree angle with the torso, okay? So you don't have to hang on to your strap this close to your foot. It's wherever for you to get that position, wherever you can grab hold of. And we want the legs straight, which means if the leg has to be down here, that's fine. Don't worry about it, okay? Because it's gonna move as we move through this pose. So I've got a long spine. That's number one, most important. Number two is that my arm bones are plugged into my back body. What does that mean? That means that I'm not, you can pull your shoulders back and you can push your shoulders forward. I'm going to pull my shoulders back, which means my chest is open. So what I was talking about with forward folds needing to initiate from the low back. So the low back pushes into the internal organs, which pushes into the belly, which takes us forward. Okay. So I'm forward folding. This is a forward fold, even though it's an ab workout at the same time. I am forward folding here. So I need to think about that low back leading me into this pose. Okay. Now what we're going to do is just tip ourselves back as far as we can go. So engage that left leg. That's going to help keep you on the ground. You don't do this. Keep lifted. Okay. And we're just lowering ourselves back to the point where it feels like we're going to tip over. Okay, once we get to that point, we stop. We recommit, which means I extend through that left heel. I lift my heart even more. So the more I lift my heart, the further I'm going to be able to take myself back without toppling over. So I'm lifting, lifting, lifting away from the floor. Right? Now I'm going to keep my foot where it is. And I'm going to lift my chest back up to where it just came from. Okay? Ooh, deepening that forward fold, are we? I'm going to plug my arms back into my shoulder sockets. So there's a little bend in my elbows, so my biceps are working, my back is working. I'm going to take this back as far as I can go. When it starts to feel like I'm either going to round or topple over, I pause, recommit into my standing leg, recommit to lifting my chest, opening the chest. And I'm going to keep that foot there and try to bring my chest back up where it started. Okay, recommit again to my shoulders plugged into my back, my low back lifting towards my thigh. I take it back as far as I can go. Stop. I recommit to everything. And then I try to lift my chest back where it came from. And then I take everything up and release. So this time, let yourself go into that lazy forward fold where your head leads you into it. I was teaching this during a class this weekend, and I got up right after doing one side to go and open a window. And it was like 2 different legs. It was like, oh my God, the most ridiculous feeling on the planet. All right, strap around the left foot, right foot's engaged. Left leg lifts. So again, I'm looking for a straight left leg. I'm looking for a straight spine. I'm looking for my arms to be plugged back into my back body, my low back to be lifted towards my thigh. So it's better to have the strap further down so you can really use your bicep muscles here. Then I just tip back. Find that place where my low back wants to give out or I want to start to lift up and fall back, and I stop. I really think about opening my chest. Think about reaching through the heel. And even though my low back is lifting into my internal organs, I'm gently drawing my low belly back towards, so there's a sandwich action happening, right? Where the front of the abdomen sandwiches into the back, into the organs, and the back of the body sandwiches into the organs. So we're getting a little organ sandwich. And then I'm going to lift my chest back up to where I came from, but keep the leg where it is. Easy peasy, right? Might need to realign my hands. And then I'm going to tip myself back again. So again, find that place where it's like I'm going to topple over or I'm going to lose my low back. And I recommit. I have that internal organ sandwich. My chest lifts. My leg lengthens. And then I try to lift my chest up where it came. And then I take it back. When I start to lose it, and I lift. I lengthen everything. I recommit to my core, recommit to my anchor leg, recommit to an open chest. And then I lift my chest. And then I drop down. Folding over. Rolling up, and we head to Shavasana. Dropping the arms out. Take a couple deep breaths as you settle into your body. Use that exhale to relax more deeply. Deepening your breath. Beginning to flood the whole body with the breath. So it's like a wave. As you inhale, it floods through the whole body, down into the fingers and the pelvis and the toes. Just inviting some movement into the body. Starting in the fingertips and toe tips. Feet and hands, legs and arms. Bending the knees, feet to the floor, hugging your hips under, and then hugging the knees to the chest. Either roll onto your side and press up, or rock yourself up to seated. Coming to seated, closing your eyes. We'll take a couple deep breaths here. So lately I've been setting an alarm that happens twice a day where I pause for gratitude. So in that moment, I need to just take a second, close my eyes and think about something that I'm grateful for. So I invite you to join me in that right now, just pausing and contemplating something that you are grateful for. And bring your hands together at your heart center. Taking a moment to be grateful for yourself, for taking the time to do this practice today. And to be grateful for this body, this little meat suit that we get to walk around in and exist in and play in. And all of the experiences that it gives us, whether we perceive them to be bad or hard, challenging or difficult. Seeing if we can start to shift to feeling gratitude even in those moments that are more challenging. Because it is such a privilege to get to experience this life in all of its varying degrees of emotions and feelings and sensations. Namaste.